think we can begin. So our first presenter, he's Denis Stryzhak, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing his name correctly. He's one of our BA students here in the Department of General Linguistics. And well, I would praise him, but his presentation will speak for itself. So without any further ado, Denis, the floor is yours.
Okay, I will share you my presentation. Okay, can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So today I will be presenting about the evolution of writing and how it has changed over time in terms of semantic development. My presentation isn't working. So usually the history of writing is divided into three categories. The first one is proto-writing, which includes everything from cave art to pictograms and ideograms. Then goes the hybrid system, which includes the rebus system and historical writing systems, which led to the third category is a full writing, which is referred as a phonetic writing, which includes most of modern systems of writing in use nowadays. And also, I want to introduce the new category, which is being born right now with the development of modern technologies, the more modern writing, about which I'm going to talk a bit later. And now I want you to show what were the semantic changes with every step that writing has taken and where it is right now. In order to do this, I would need to explain how the other means of communication work by drawing a simple graph. Let's take as an example a simple blue chair. The starting point is the physical object itself that exists and turns into, in our minds, to an idea of a chair. And exactly this idea I want to put into your minds. So when I'm trying to communicate with you, I will try to make a reference to the idea of a chair that it is in your minds. When I say the phrase, I've seen a blue chair yesterday, you could probably imagine this blue chair, even if you have never seen the actual chair that I'm talking about. Also, you might know better the system as a triangle of reference or symbol reference triangle. But here I'm going to expand this triangle a little bit. Also here I would need to divide the referent into physical and non-physical referent. Later I will explain why this distinction is so important for the development of writing. So in order to communicate, we need a system of communication, some way to put my ideas into our heads, or as I mentioned it, means of communication. Basically, most of living creatures had created one for their needs. The first one and most common is the animal realm. In the animal realm are gestures. Different animals use their system of communication, which is based on gestures to explain what they need to explain. I believe some of you have heard bees dance or some similar experiments. We are obviously also use gestures to explain a lot of ideas and emotions, nowadays mostly emotions, if we want to consider deaf people who are fully using this means of communication. And the second branch of this system is communicating via sound, and again, via the system, we can express ideas mostly through words and also emotions through intonations or volume that we use to add additional undertone to any expression. This is a simple graph of communication which does not include writing yet, and that's what I'm going to do. The whole reason why people around the world started to create some basic system of writing is because at that time there were no way to communicate through time or distance. The word could be spoken once and then only repeated, but that was unreliable. But written symbol has to be written once and it will continue its function until it is basically visible. And our journey begins with the above-mentioned proto-writing, the earliest form of communication by making pictures or pictograms that refer to any physical objects that is possible to draw. If you put this system into our graph, we will see that the earliest forms were purely semantic and were not tied to any language. As you can see on these pictures, which describe some scenes, even though we have never seen them, we could read what these pictures are about. But with this system, we cannot describe everything that is, we cannot describe everything, and that is exactly where we need the distinction between physical and non-physical ideas. To put the idea of any physical objects to one's head is quite simple. I can just draw you the object. But with non-physical objects, it's a bit hard. Because when I say health or day, it's quite complicated to write it or draw it. You see, when I'm trying to put the idea of time into someone's head, most of the people will imagine a clock or any other physical objects that indirectly refers to the non-physical idea. And in order to do that, to express non-physical objects or concepts, ideographs were created. So basically, to represent a non-physical idea in proto-writing, people had to refer initially to the physical object that itself refers to non-physical one. But as you can imagine, the system basically had no system, paradoxically, or structure, and therefore very unreliable and could be misinterpreted, which ruins the whole idea of communicating. To solve this issue, the system had to evolve, and in order to become more reliable, writing systems in a lot of places throughout the history link itself to already existing reliable system of communication as spoken language. For physical objects, there were no need for evolution, but to describe more complex ideas, the rebus principle was born. When symbols used for their phonetic value instead of semantic one. The best example, as you know, of such writing are ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. If you put the system into our graph, we can see how the semantic root has changed and linked to spoken language. And as an example of rebus principle, we could look at the written name of the Egyptian pharaoh, and I will show you. So at the bottom, we have three hieroglyphs. The first one means ruler. The second city and Upper Egypt, so they are basically pictures, ideographs. So if you, so it's just a ruler of Thebes. But the hieroglyphs above, they are used for the phonetic values. For example, the hieroglyphs which means life, and in Egyptian Ankh, is used only for phonetic value, not for its semantic one. So we can read actually the name. And also to avoid any misunderstanding, a lot of languages with the development of rebus symbols came up with the semantic element after some words to determine the exact meaning behind the word or a sentence. So determinatives is a symbol or a character used in writing system to provide context or additional meaning. A lot of different civilizations have used this system, such as Shumers, Mayas, and even Chinese, in which characters we can still see remnants of determiners, like right now. And as you can see on this picture, the hieroglyph par can mean both house and to go, the verb. And we cannot be sure what that means, but when we have a determiner, we can actually see that this hieroglyph means to go and not a house. And in another example, you will see that two same hieroglyph with determiners means basically different things. So here we have go from home. And here I can show you the remnants of determinants in modern Chinese. where one character is representing the phonetical features, ones above, and other ones only their semantic meaning. But mostly, right now, mostly they are just redundant. And with more writing for simplification reasons, to write faster or more precise, a lot of writing systems don't totally abandon pictographs and switch to their semantic root from direct semantic connection to the idea to the roots through a spoken language. Alphabets and syllabaries spread around the world, and even Chinese has its own Latin-based alphabetical system that is used mostly for teaching and sometimes when they write on a laptop or on a telephone. But also there is a theory that I have to mention, that people, after getting used to the words, do not read them phonetically, but rather as a whole character. As an example, you must have seen this text where letters are basically messed up, but nevertheless, people who are familiar with the language have no problems in reading it. It works similar as Chinese hieroglyphs, but instead of stripes or strokes they write, we use just letters. And also in full writing, we are often use abbreviations, short forms, short forms that are that have no connection to their spelling. For example, the @ symbol, historically it was connected phonetically to the language, to the meaning, but not anymore. Or a more complex example is the spelling of French words that with all phonetical changes in the spoken language turn out to be used right now as characters in Chinese. Therefore, we could say that even the full writing is trying to connect to the idea directly, avoiding the phonetics. And at this stage, the writing entered a new millennia. The system is precise and reliable and commonly used everywhere by everyone. But as you can see, by comparison with other known developed systems of communication, as voice and gestures, the full writing was the full writing is good because it can express the direct ideas, but had a lack of additional ones that other systems have. The lack of which could lead to misunderstanding. Basically, writing had no way of expressing emotions, and people were trying to find a way to express basically any emotions through writing, using upper letters, lowercase letters, using different symbols to express something more. At the beginning of the digital era, people figured out that the best way to modify any meaning was invented long ago in the form of determinants that I have mentioned, or in other words, pictures at the end of the word, or in other words, just emojis. As an example of how it works on practice, I can show you a few messages. First one basically has no context. You cannot just say who wrote this message to whom, what they are going to talk about. But as soon as determiner appears, you can actually just guess that there are two friends that are going to play some games tonight. But as soon as I will add another determiner or emoji, you know the meaning of the message. So I believe there are no friends involved in this. And here we can just add modern writing to our system, where it has the way to express both objects and emotions. Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, so please, from here or online. I hope you can hear me online.
Can we stop sharing our screen?
So,
questions for Dennis? Comments? Praise? Hey, Dennis, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
You're part of a small research group dealing with alphabets, the writing systems or something, right?
Yes.
Can you say something more about the group or what you guys are trying to do?
We are basically trying to find out how emojis are developing into modern writing in our digital writing and how similar they are to the determiners that I've mentioned. Basically, I'm just looking for connections and how they work and how they are going to develop in the future, for example, and how they change the meaning, what they do, and so on.
Very nice.
I have a question, just for the sake of sort of controversy. So you made this distinction between sort of types of referent of I will say sign. So you said that there was physical objects, then there were non-physical objects, but at the end, what you really properly had were ideas of both. So at the end, why do you need this distinction between physical objects and non-physical? Signs will be referring to ideas primarily. And this is a hard question, but
basically this distinction was important at the beginning, because at the beginning writing it was hard because writing wasn't linked to any other system that basically had no problems, because our spoken language doesn't care if we are talking about physical or non-physical object. But writing at its beginning was when it was just the pictures, it was easy to draw physical objects, but non-physical, it was quite hard. You had to refer to physical at the beginning, and these physical objects had to refer to the non-physical ones. And because of these complications, writing system had to be developed to avoid this problem. And this is where this distinction was important. But right now, it's basically not a problem anymore.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. We have one question here from Connor.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
So I'm very curious. This is a bit of a, I guess, a tangential question, but I'm curious if you have any ideas about how one would go about investigating the use of emojis, given that when I personally, for example, would use emojis, I would use it in a, in a group chat or texting someone in a very private context, not in, I don't think I'm going to find any emojis in public documents or a corpus, for example. So I'm curious how, I think there's a lot of really interesting things to, I think it's really interesting investigating emojis, but I'm really curious about how one goes about looking into it other than maybe just hypotheticals.
Well, at the beginning, when we had when digital writing was in the development, we didn't have like fast messaging. We have like emails, we have maybe big letters, but there were no reasons to express emotions. Even right now, when you write a letter, official letter, you have no reason to express any emotions. It's the same if you are going somewhere to tell some information. If you don't need to express emotions, writing didn't need it as well. But when fast messaging appears, and fast messaging basically is just a simple talking, you had to find a way to express the same emotions, because they could be misunderstood, just these messages. But when you see a news in a newspaper, you just don't need emotions to express something there. You're just given an information. So writing had no problems with that. Newspapers, I don't know, emails. But right now it's just only like when you're talking with the people, you need to express your emotions, and the same with the fast messaging, you need to express your emotions. Yes, right now it's you can like send a voice message or even a video. It's not a problem, but it's easier to just write a message.
Thank you very much.
Indeed, thank you. Do we have more questions here or from our friends abroad? Yeah, those of you who are online. No raised hands. Okay. More questions here. Okay, so maybe then we can move on to our second presenter. Dennis, thanks again. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you as well.